Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Live, Laugh, Left.
Wrong podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to I'm the Best, the tier list podcast.
Try again.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Strollin and Trollin.
Closer. Try again.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to podcast time.
Ooh, that's a defunct one.
Defunct, it's still going.
What?
Got rebranded.
Got him.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Minecraft Feet Brangling. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Ark Survival Evolved. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Jurassic Park.
Closer.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Chili's vlog. Hello, everybody, and welcome to... I already forgot what we called this again.
Here's our resume.
Here's our or here's my?
Here's my resume.
Here's my resume.
Here's my resume.
Here's our.
Here's my resume. The Work Stories Podcast. Episode 2.
Us!
We're going to finally start diving into jobs now that we've gone through the application and hiring process.
We've got the job. Now let's talk about it.
We're going to start today with one that we've both worked. There's not many of those, but we're going to start today with one of them. And those who went worked at our local zoo.
Potter Park Zoo.
Potter Park Zoo.
That won't dox us at all.
I did this for one summer. Noah did this for 2 summers. It was kind of
because I'm better than him.
And this was not a paid job, though it probably should have been.
It was weird that it wasn't.
Looking back, it is really, really weird that this was not a paid job.
Personally, the second summer I was paid in experience. The first summer, maybe it should have been paid.
I think both years should have been paid. It was like a teen zookeeper volunteer program that they did. And, you know, looking back, it was I remember the guy... There was a guy that ran it, like the main guy. I only ever saw him once.
He was the little guy. When we went and you go into the big conference room and everybody's sitting, usually there's like one kid and their parent. Me and Tyler are the only 2 guys in the entire freaking thing.
No, it was really creepy.
It wasn't creepy. It was awesome. I had the pick of the litter. That's a crazy thing to just say. All the animals were around me, and I got to choose which ones I wanted the most. That was just in the conference room. Wait until we get to the spider monkeys. Man, are they flexible. The palace cat. Now that bitch is rough. That sucker is aggressive as hell.
Oh, good times, good times. Noah and I never worked together really, like, at the same time.
We saw each other, we saw each other a couple times, but it was usually in passing.
It was, yeah.
And we would have like there was at least one lunch that we had at the same time.
One lunch?
Yeah, because you get a lunch.
I don't remember
that. You don't remember that?
I don't remember
you get a lunch.
I don't think I worked long enough for them to give me a lunch.
You at least did once, because we did have one lunch.
Okay.
Where we met up for lunch. We just sat at the picnic tables. We're like, yeah, let's go out. This is a zoo. We're at a zoo. It's pretty cool. Look at that. There's an eagle. Caw! It happened at least once.
I believe you.
It's weird that you don't remember that.
I don't remember, like, some of the more minute details. We did this... Well, I was in 8th grade. And you finished it in 9th grade. So, it's been a while now, since we're both old. But there were some aspects of this job that were really weird, and because I still really do love animals. I still love going to the zoo. Here's
an interesting fact. I don't have a metric for you. Because there was another thing that I had to fill out. I had to fill out like it was one of 2 things. I either used my biology teacher as a reference for the advanced version of this program, or I used the advanced thing in something for a paper for him, and I can't remember which one. But you had to, like, interestingly enough, yeah, you technically had to apply for this volunteer job. It was easy to get into the first part. Here's an interesting thing. We had to get tuberculosis shots. Do you remember that?
I remember getting the shot. I didn't know it was for the zoo.
It was for the zoo. We had to get tuberculosis shots for the zoo.
It's crazy. I cannot. I remember because I got a lot of like vaccinations during that time because like those
a very sickly child.
Those early teenage years are apparently very important for many different vaccinations, and one of them was a tuberculosis shot. I had no clue that it was for the zoo, though.
Yeah, it was for the zoo. We had to get tuberculosis shots, so we had to get vaccinated for the zoo. We technically did have to apply to the first one. We had to go through a whole orientation, obviously. I mean, we're dealing with animals. They're not people, right? So it's completely different. But for the second one, I think I had to work a specific amount of hours the first summer to get into the second one.
Yes, I remember that. I remember that being something that they talked about.
Because I just found just a thing, which is, I believe it was for some job that I was applying to. I don't know. It might have been for scouts or something, but this specifically says that I volunteered at Potter Park Zoo for more than 100 hours. And I doubt that was before the second year. So we were there for a while, but I think you had to do like 40 hours or something like that. 45 maybe, something like that to get into the second one.
That makes sense.
But
I remember them talking about that.
But yeah, we had to like apply for it, and like they could like reject you. And I swear to God that I had to use him as a reference, my biology teacher, for it. But I don't know.
I don't remember having to use references for it. Maybe I probably did. But it'd be really weird because I remember a lot of kids did it. At least the first year program, a lot of kids did it because how we logged our hours, it wasn't like a punch clock. It was, we didn't do it on our phones. It was a book. It was right outside of the aquarium, which doesn't exist anymore. It was at this little hallway between the aquarium and the rest of the zoo. And there was a little book that we had to log our hours in, like what day we did in our name. So sometimes I would just like flip through the book and see, wow, there's all these kids doing this program. And 99% of them I never, ever spoke to or even saw, which was bizarre. But
I'm finding.
I don't remember where I was going with this.
The only thing that I've found so far is I found an application to the National Honor Society, which is interesting.
That's going to be its own episode. Well, it'll be part of an episode.
But I also found.
I did some NHS stuff.
But I also found a scholarship application where I also used my teen zookeeper thing as a reference for that.
I used it. I definitely remember using it to apply for jobs because I definitely learned a lot while working there.
Oh, yeah.
About, like, not just necessarily working at a zoo, but just life in general. I mean, I was in 8th grade. This was the first real job that I ever had. I met people that were a lot more experienced than I was, and just not just in the zoo, but with life in general. And so I definitely like learned a lot about, work ethic and effort and stuff like that, because so it was in that way it was good, because I think it set me up well for future endeavors and everything like that, which was nice. So it was good in that regard. And I didn't really I remember I had intention, like when I first heard about the second year program and like what you could do more of during that, I was originally very interested in doing it. And I think I got close to or did fulfill the hour requirement to do it. I don't know exactly why I didn't do it, but I definitely didn't like the job more. I definitely like the job less when I was done versus when I started.
I'm the opposite opinion. I liked the job more after I was done because I did the second year. I think if you did the second year, your opinion would have been different.
Looking back, I probably should have done the second year because with you, I think I would have liked it a lot more because you would have had more responsibilities. You would have been with more of the animals, and
you get to actually go behind the scenes and like
Right.
into animal pens and stuff.
which would have been really, really cool.
Feed the bongos. What are they called?
Was that before the one that was that before or
the
after
birth? It was before the birth of that one.
No, the one that broke its leg and ultimately died because a firework got blown up right in front of its pen.
I think that was before that.
Because I remember hearing about that.
Might have been after. It was before the new one that was born recently as well.
Oh, didn't know about that.
But I did find another metric in a different paper that said I worked over 200 hours as a teen zookeeper.
That probably was combined.
So that was probably combined. So maybe I did do 100 hours because that was like my summer job, quote unquote. I think because I did. We'll talk about this later, but I did Boy Scout summer camp as well. And this lines up right around the time when I did that. But I would have only done that for like 4 weeks my first year because it was a CIT. I was a counselor in training, and I wasn't getting paid for it, which is abysmal. We'll talk about that later. I have a lot of things to talk about that. And then I came back and continued to do more free work, but it was the Teen Zookeeper program. And this also lines up. I wonder if we talked about this in podcast time, because it lines up fairly closely with when we started that podcast. At least the second year.
I think we...
Because we started it in AP Gov, when we were in AP Gov.
No, that was after, because AP Gov was junior year.
Yeah, we started it. We definitely started it in junior year.
We started, I think, we started it early junior year, but you did the program 8th and 9th grade. So it would have been before.
Oh, you might be right.
Because because we both did it in 8th grade, and then you did it the year after. That would have been 9th grade. So
we were best buddies.
True.
I swear to God, we must have talked about this before. I mean, it would be weird if we didn't, I guess. It's kind of a formative moment in both of our lives. Volunteering at a zoo. Especially for you.
True.
You want to tell that story?
Well, we'll get to that. So, the first... I don't know. I think I still have the shirt that I wore when we worked there. I doubt it fits anymore. But I think I still have it. I should have retrieved it for this episode. I didn't know you were doing this one first. But,
what are you retrieving?
The shirt we wore.
Oh, do I have that shirt still?
I still have it, I think.
I think I do. Yeah. We also have name tags. I think I have the name tag somewhere, too.
Oh, I probably do have the name tag. It's probably buried in my personal bin somewhere, along with my program name tag. But the first year, you were very limited in what you could do.
Three things. You could literally do 3 things.
3 things. You could do the easiest one was working in the bird thing where they had a bunch of birds and you could buy food. Easy is a
relative statement, I would say, though, because it was very nothing. You didn't do anything.
You didn't do anything. So
it was kind of boring.
It was very boring.
And I stood there for like 8 hours.
I don't know. Did I ever do 8-hour shifts?
I feel like you at least did one.
I don't know if I ever did over 6 hours.
You had to have done one.
I might have done one.
Because we had
I might have done one and then been like, fuck this. I'm just doing 4 6-hour shifts. But that was, it was very boring. All you did...
Did ARC precede podcast time?
No.
We did podcast time first and then ARC?
Yeah.
Okay. I swear to God, there were some days where we would do the Zookeeper program and then I would leave and then we would do like ARC or podcast time or something. I swear to God that was a thing that happened.
It might have been. I don't know. Might have been. Who knows? So the bird thing was fine. I don't really have any crazy stories about that because, again, most of the time, nothing happened. Our main responsibilities there were, we had a broom and we had to make sure that the birds weren't sitting on the ground so people didn't accidentally stomp on them. Which I never saw a bird die in there, but I have to think that it happened enough to where
they had to do something.
They had to make a policy about it. But that was most of what I did in there. Other than just like standing around and talk, there were always 2 other at every position, every like station that I ever worked at, there were always 2 other people that would be there, like 2 full-time zookeepers. One would usually do a lot of the like harder work, like making the feeders.
There were layers. There were layers of employees that were above us, right? So there was us. There was those part-time. They were part-time still. They weren't full-time. team
I knew
members.
some people that were full time, but
But
yeah, probably some part-time.
those people weren't actually that job though. They were a different tier.
Oh,
Because
okay.
there's us, there's the part timers. Those are the people who usually were working in the birdhouse. The birdhouse. It's the place with all those people with instruments. The birdhouse. And then there were that other group of people, which was like the same level of importance, not level of pay, like obviously, but like as like what I was my second year.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were the maintenance people, which was above us. And then there were the zookeepers, and then the head zookeepers, and then the owner. And then the stockholders.
Who owns stocks? And
The people who, tons of people. That's what you do when you sign up to the thing where you donate yearly to like an animal or whatever, you adopt an animal. It's those people.
Oh, weird.
You know about that. They adopt
Yeah,
animals.
I know about that, yeah.
They have that's part of the deal is you get like a say of things they do, and
Yeah,
it's
I know
basically
that.
stockholders. It's not actually stockholders, obviously, but
Right, yeah.
it's a zoo, so.
But like other than sweeping the birds off the floor, I couldn't like handle money because I wasn't old enough, so I couldn't even like take payment for the feed stuff.
Well, they wouldn't
But-
let me. They wouldn't let any of us handle money because I mean, like
Well, we're not old enough to handle
exactly.
money,
We
that's
but
why, so-
like we would be if we were old enough, then we would be too old to be doing the program.
Right, exactly. So like when there wasn't customers in there, which was very rare, there were barely anybody ever went through there. The only other thing we did was I was just talking to the other employees, and they were like all the employees that I met were really nice people.
Nobody was like sketchy.
No, not
I will
really.
point that out.
They were really nice.
There were other people that were hired on in that like low tier of like part-time team members that were obviously special needs. There was that one guy, I don't remember his name, but he came in like almost every day, and he worked specifically in the goats. But he was definitely special needs, but he was like one of the coolest guys ever.
Yeah, everybody was really, really cool. The only thing I really remember for them, other than the fact that they were nice people, was that they were so obsessed with going to the movies.
Yes, they were. They really were.
That was all they talked about.
I never
other
even
than the
thought about that.
Other than work, that's all they talked about was the movies. And I'm a big movie guy. I've reviewed over 200
I'm a
something
big
movies.
movie guy.
Over 200 something movies I reviewed, maybe more at the time of this going up. So I like going to the movies. But for several hours straight, no.
They go to film festivals and stuff.
And that's like insane. I was like,
It's
maybe like
expensive, too.
maybe like one person or two people, maybe. But
All
that
of
was
them.
everybody.
All of them. All of
were
them in that
so-
low tier, the actual team members, the part timers, and then like the maintenance people. They were all in that same group of people.
It's just crazy that was all they did. But other than that, like, it was fine. The bird cage was very, very boring. But I did like it only because that was the only station where I could wear my tennis shoes.
Yes, forgot about that.
And then, so the other two stations, and this comes into quite possibly one of, if not the greatest investment I've ever made, was because the other two stations you had to wear boots. So we went out, shortly before I started doing this job, we went out and bought a pair of muck boots. They are so important and so useful. Because, obviously, they worked really well for the other two stations, but also I used them to cut up the grass. We use them to do another one of these jobs that I probably won't talk about for a little while, but it's come very in handy for that. They're super durable. They finally are starting to show their age after 9 years of ownership, which is crazy because most shoes wear out after a year or two.
Less than that sometimes,
Yeah.
especially more recently.
And they've been so important and so useful. And so the fact that they've made their, like, it's hard to even remember, like, it's hard, like, I sometimes just forget completely why we even bought them in the first place because of just how useful they've become. But that's where they started. This pair of muck boots was at the zoo. The other two stations that we worked at that required them was the pony ride, where the children could ride the ponies around a little circle, and then we just like would tend to the ponies and clean them up. And there's like the back area where they would
Oh yeah,
take
you
naps.
clean them up all right.
And then we'll get to that later. And then the other one was the goat exhibit, where people could go in and pet the goats.
The chickens were in there. In the
Well, that okay. So I never really experienced the chickens because that was when influenza was big and the chickens were gone. I think.
Well, there were definitely chickens in there when I was in there, because I remember one of them.
Maybe I just don't remember the chickens.
I remember one specific chicken attacking a kid. I don't remember what the chicken's name was, but I remember the team member being like, "No, stop it, and then they were saying the chicken's name or whatever. Like, the chicken fucking knows. The chicken's just like, "Wah!" like attacking this kid. The goats are just looking at it like, so funny.
But I remember, we'll talk about the goats first, because I don't have anything else super crazy to talk about with the goats. The responsibilities in there mostly just included
Picking up
making sure the gate was closed, and picking
very,
up goat shit.
very important, making sure that gate was closed, because the chickens will run out. But apparently, you don't remember chickens, which is weird.
I don't remember seeing many chickens. Maybe we did. I don't know. But then it was also cleaning up goat shit and stuff like that. This station was also the only time working at this station was also the only time that I ever worked a closing shift while there. That was
You do
weird.
interesting stuff when you close. Like, you do different things.
And it was
Like, you have to, like, pack up shop, right? You have to, like, not only do you have to feed the goats, right?
right.
But you have to, like, they bring you inside the barn, and you're, like, doing all this weird...
Well, I rode
random
a
things.
tractor, and it was like this back path, dirt path around the outside of the zoo, and I went places and saw stuff that I'd never seen before, didn't even know existed.
Did you go back to where they keep the ponies?
I went to that back area, not to close, but
You went to the other back area, is what you're saying.
the one with the stables, or behind that.
Behind that.
I never went behind that.
Oh, okay.
But like we went around pretty much like the entire zoo riding on this tractor. It was really fun. I've worked a lot of closing shifts since, I do it almost every day now actually. So it's not something out of the ordinary for me.
It's
anymore.
interesting to be in the zoo after everybody else is kicked out. Just like being at Disneyland when there's like nobody there. It's almost eerie.
It was very eerie because it was like I'd gone to the zoo many times before this, as a visitor and also as an employee, and I'd never been there after hours. So like being there, and like my brain is like, time to go. The zoo's closed. Time to go home. And they're like, you can't go home because you still got work to do.
Yep.
It was really.
Yep.
So that was something that I had to comprehend, but it was honestly pretty cool. Getting to be a little bit more involved, doing more stuff like that. The only reason I didn't do another closing shift is because that was also the day that I thought I got abandoned at the zoo because my mom told me, because I couldn't drive. I was in 8th grade. I couldn't drive.
Yeah, it was because he hit an old lady. Killed her. She's dead.
So my mom had to come pick me up.
They fed her to the
And
goats.
true. And she was super late for whatever reason. I don't remember. I overreacted.
My bad.
I overreacted. Very much so. Like, she wasn't that late. Because I was just, like, sitting under a
Were
tree.
you genuinely freaking out? Like,
I was a little
were you,
bit.
like, crying?
I wasn't.
You
okay.
thought you were like? You thought
Okay.
your parents legitimately abandoned you?
Well, I wasn't super. Like, I was just sitting under a tree, chilling, minding my own business. I was, like, playing on my phone or something. But I wasn't super worried until one of the employees that I worked with a lot. She was by far the most obsessed with going to the movies. I don't know her name. She was also super nice. She comes out and she looks at me. She's like, Tyler! So I turn around. I was like, who's this? Oh. Yeah, what's
Tyler!
Do you need a ride home? Are somebody coming to get you? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And I'm like, have I really been here that long? Because it felt like 15 minutes. It must have been.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, you were probably playing Burrito Bison at the time. That makes time go by quick.
getting burrito bison. No, I was on FanDuel Casino.
Oh, God!
Gambling away my
8th
paycheck.
grade. That's what happens. You hit an old lady, and then you end up in the slots.
But, so I never did a closing shift again. But it actually wasn't bad. I also learned at that point that I'm much more of a morning worker than I am a night worker. So
I'm a night worker for sure.
I opened the zoo many times, and that was also pretty cool because like you got to do a lot of prep work.
I didn't like that very much. I never liked it. It was so goddamn early. And I would get there so goddamn early. I got there before the employees did, and I'd just be walking back and forth listening to AJR as I'm waiting for them to show up. At the like little where they keep the capybaras and the tortoises right in front of the birdhouse.
Oh yeah, I know.
Walking back and forth right there. You think it's a zoo? Go walk around, look at the animals. But no, I'm on the clock. It's my job. I have to like sit there and wait for them. Because if I'm not there when they get there, I get in trouble. I don't remember what kind of trouble that was, but I know that there was like a serious penalty of some sort.
If you're
cannot remember because like it was a big deal if you signed up for a shift and then never showed up.
It was a big deal.
That was a big deal, and I don't remember, like, I know why, pretty much. It's fairly self-explanatory, but, like, I don't remember what the deal was if you didn't.
I don't remember that either. I remember it was a big deal, though. Because I was super freaked out. I was like, we gotta get there on time. We gotta get there on time. Like,
exactly.
I remember feeling like that.
That's why I always got there so goddamn early. It's because they made such a big deal out of it. So clearly the thing must have been like a pretty bad punishment. They like banned you from the zoo or something.
That would be funny if you were just like a Potter Park Zoo no-fly list, and you're just like...
No-fly list. Eagle. You can't fly because he got a broken wing. Potter Park Zoo is also one of the good zoos. I just want to point that out. A lot of people hate zoos. This is not a zoo that exists for the entertainment of people. This is a rehabilitation zoo. This zoo is like very, very important when it comes to rhinos in the wild. They're a big rhino breeder, and they are a breeding zoo in general. They have a lot of babies born there every year.
Yeah, I remember.
Big conservation zoo.
I remember when the tiger cubs were born. That was a big deal.
It didn't always.
And they got.
It wasn't always that way. They had an elephant by itself, and they got rid of the elephant because obviously they wised up and decided.
No, the elephant died.
No, they had to get rid of the elephant. The elephant might have died later, but they had to get rid of the elephant because the paddock wasn't big enough, and it was the only elephant. So they traded it for something else. I can't remember what they traded it for, but.
No, I remember that story very well.
They had another elephant, I think, that escaped. And maybe died?
I don't remember that. I remember the elephant died because it was eating rocks. And then they couldn't ever get an elephant again. Because of that or something?
No.
Because its name was Bingo. I remember that. It was a huge deal. There's a little...
Tomby was the elephant's name.
No, there's a memorial statue of it in the garden by the penguins. Or not by the penguins. Over by the pond area. There's like a little, like you walk past the little waterfall, the bridge, and then you get to like this memorial garden, and there's a little statue.
Bingo was the elephant before Tomby. Tomby was their last elephant.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it says right here, she moved into Bingo's old quarters.
That's bizarre. Why the fuck would they get another elephant?
Because they weren't always a good zoo.
But where that old elephant paddock was,
and that
now...
zoo, the elephant that they traded is still alive. She's in the Indianapolis Zoo. Interesting enough.
But that area where the elephant used to be eventually got remodeled to where now the rhinos are. I guess I could talk about zoo school. That was another thing that I did there. Do you remember that? Do you remember zoo school? Maybe I talked about this before.
That was like the fourth.
That was third grade.
Oh, that's different. That's not what I'm talking about. There was a fourth option for the basic teen zookeeper program.
Oh yes, there was.
There was a fourth option, but it wasn't very common.
Well, the goat thing. Go back. Okay, we'll talk about zoo school later. Yeah. Second thing was the goats. It's fine.
It did. It swallowed a rock.
The third main option was working the pony exhibit, which I already talked about, where, again, kids could get on the pony and ride them around. They usually had like 2 or 3 ponies in there. So my duty was cleaning up duty in the back part of the... Because there was a side pen area. The public couldn't go there. That was where the animals could sleep, rest, eat, whatever. But we had to clean up their shit.
Yep.
That was disgusting.
Always. Smelled terrible.
Probably the most disgusting thing that I ever did there.
Nope.
Probably not for you, but for me.
No, not for you.
Well, yeah, there is one other thing that happened in the pony exhibit. Big reason why I wanted to do this episode in the first place. One of the ponies
loves this. It's his favorite thing. It awoke something inside of him.
What? One of the ponies got excited.
Pony boner.
Yep, there was a pony boner, and it was the oldest pony in the exhibit.
Was it the one-eyed one?
No.
Wasn't fucking, what was it, Moon or something like that? There was one named Moon. There was the one-eyed one as well.
She was like 19 or something, like super old.
Yeah, there was a really old pony.
Was
it the black one? Then?
No, it was like a golden orange one. I remember.
Oh, yep, I know what one you're talking about.
I'll never get that image out of my eyes ever.
The pony boner?
Yeah.
Well, he'll never get that pony boner out of his ass either.
Because nobody else noticed it except for me.
Well, because everybody else there was probably like, nah, it's an animal boner. It happens. It definitely happens all the time.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure it does. But it was the only time I ever saw one.
And then they plopped the kid right on top of the whole pony and just sent them on their way. Did you ever get to walk the pony?
No.
I did.
Maybe once. I don't remember. But again, all three of these stations that I worked that I've talked about were never busy. They were never busy.
Nope. The pony one was definitely the most busy one.
I'd say the goat one was the most busy for me.
There were lines at the pony one at a couple of different points. Maybe not the summer that you were there.
We had customers at all three, but it wasn't ever super busy.
I actually would think that the goat was the slowest one for me.
The bird one was definitely the slowest one for me. Barely anybody was ever in there. Which is why most of my memories working at the zoo is just sitting around talking to people or just sitting there waiting for time to pass.
A lot of that.
Which was honestly kind of boring. Like outside
it was great for me.
I was
talking to women. I was pretty okay with that.
Outside of opening the zoo, closing the zoo, or doing some other minor cleaning work in between, I didn't really do anything. Which was honestly a little underwhelming, and probably one of the reasons why I didn't pursue the second year, because, and I also got a different job that actually paid, which we'll talk about eventually. It's still going on, so I'm not going to talk about it right now. But so maybe that's
you had another job that's still going on right after that.
Not right after the year that I would have done the second year of the zoo program. Something else came up, but
was it without actually saying what it was? Was it I was supposed to spell it out. Like as if they don't know how to spell.
Yeah, YouTube viewers don't know how to spell.
OFGOB, but not OnlyFans.
You couldn't have abbreviated that, but yes, you're right.
Okay. Well, now people are just going to think it's OnlyFans, which is better.
No, it's not.
It's a little bit better than them going to where you actually are.
Well, how old was I when there's what if it's
old enough?
Okay, we're moving on.
Because it's not OnlyFans. It could be.
No.
I told you the pony boner woke something up. He said, My Little Pony, more like My Little Boner. And bingo. That was the elephant's name.
But really, I don't have...
Remember how I said you should take our advice in the last episode? Maybe don't.
Yeah, please don't. Except about not going back to Chili's. Take that advice.
Take that advice. Don't ever go to Chili's if you can avoid it. You get earwig in your ketchup.
So yeah, nothing really crazy outside of that. There was a fourth station that I worked for one day.
Yep. And
it was their summer camp program it was the zoo summer camp program, basically like a youth camp.
You were a counselor.
For one day. I was an assistant counselor for one day.
And it
don't know why.
Didn't really require a whole lot. You were kind of just fucking around watching.
You just had to watch the kids because all they would like there was a little playground they play on. They'd eat food, but they'd also do like activities or crafts or learning stuff or whatever. They might go walk around the zoo for a little bit, maybe get some behind the scenes stuff.
Did you ever go into? I don't remember if this was because what I did the second year or because of or if it happened the first year. Did you ever go into like the vet area where they keep like the baby animals and like the like the real small baby animals and then the show animals?
No, I don't think I did ever.
It was in that main building. It was like in the back.
The classes were?
No, it wasn't the classes. It was like a little, literally looked like a veterinarian room, but it was just full of cages of show animals.
Are you talking
about where they take the lizard from the thing and bring it into the classrooms and say, "This is this lizard."
Oh, I was thinking of something different. Yes, I did go in there.
You did go in there.
That day that I was a counselor, I did go in there to help out.
Because that's where you take the small animals to get them weighed. Like, I remember we weighed a penguin in there.
I never weighed a penguin. I didn't really, like, interact with any of the animals much. I just had to go in there for a little bit. But, yes, I did go in there. I thought you were talking about the other area over by the goats where they would do surgical procedures.
No, not the little box where you could watch them cut a tiger's tail off or whatever they did. It probably wasn't that.
But no, like the summer camp was fine. Like it was weird for me because when I was that age, I did do the summer camp for a year, and
when you were that age, you did that when you were that age
of the age of the children in the camp.
Oh, I was like, why were you? That's a little weird.
So it's like it was kind of like a throwback for me in a way, but it was. And I remember
Thursday, by the way. This will go up on a Wednesday.
I guess I could talk about that summer camp a little bit. My experience being a camper and then also a camp counselor. I remember it was really funny because we did a lot of similar things. It hadn't really changed much at all. I remember that was I just watched Jurassic Park for the first time right before we went to the summer camp. And so I was
you were really excited to see dinosaurs.
I was making a lot of Jurassic Park references, which was really funny. And then I only remember...
It's like when the guy who's on the toilet gets eaten by the dinosaur.
True. And then what else? The only thing I truly remember from that was Eli and Dan Snake having...
They were there?
Yeah, Eli...
What?
It was Dan Snake, Cole, and Eli were all there with me. And I think my brother was too. They were having Eli and I think it was actually either Cole or Dan Snake we were in front of the porcupine exhibit, and we were having they don't
even have porcupines anymore.
They were having an argument about whether it was King Dee or King DDD for like 20 minutes, and the camp counselor got so fucking mad.
Why?
It was so funny.
Why was the camp counselor so mad?
Were you
arguing with the counselor on which one it was?
No, they were arguing with each other.
That's what I thought. Why was the camp counselor so mad?
That was so funny, but it was a really fun camp actually. Probably because I was there with my friends, so it was more because we were just having fun.
Work friends,
hanging out at the zoo and eating food and learning about animals and doing crafts and whatnot. So it was actually pretty fun. I really like being a camper. Camp counselor was fine. I mean, I didn't do a whole lot because I only did it for one day.
Oh yeah, you just kind of stay around. You're mad at people who argue about DDDs.
And we just I just walked around, didn't really do a whole lot, and I ran I did a couple things. Like I remember going back into this one room in one of the classrooms that had a bunch of play equipment in it. It felt like like the storage room at a elementary school gymnasium.
Yep.
It was basically that.
Yep.
It smelled really weird.
Of course it did. They always do.
And yeah, so that was
almost like rubber.
That was fine. It was cool. I never got the opportunity to do it again, but I probably would have. I think it was probably my favorite because, one, I could wear my tennis shoes. Two, I was actually doing stuff that didn't involve just standing around talking to people. Three, I wasn't in horse shit. Four,
you were picking up people shit.
True. I never had to do that, thank God. Otherwise, I would have quit right on the spot. Because that's not what I signed up for in life. Let's see if I got any other fun stories to talk about.
The only thing you kind of glanced over the birdhouse a little bit. But I don't remember having like crazy big hair because I never had an afro when I was in public school. That happened after school, and like in the middle of COVID, is when that started. But it was at least long enough where the birds were making nests in my hair. They would fly into my hair and they would just sit there and like pick at my hair. It was super awesome.
That's really
actually.
weird.
It's kind of cool. And the other thing is specifically one of their rules is they have to check your backpack before you leave because the birds would sneak into the backpacks.
I never brought a backpack, so I never had to deal with that. But
so I had a string backpack, and they would be like, "All right, is there a bird in there?" Nope. Then you would leave because they would sneak into the little holes, just like they would try to like make a nest in my hair, and they're like bringing things to my hair and just sticking it in. I also saw, this was funny. I saw two birds having sex, and then an egg popped out and then hit the ground and exploded. That was really funny. That was a good day for me.
So what were they just like on a big branch and like?
Yeah, they were high up, and then the egg fell out and hit the ground. Because the other thing is they had to collect the eggs if they ever like hatched or if they ever laid any, because then they would incubate them if they had babies in them. Because like I said, it's a conservation zoo, so like most of the animals in there, with the exceptions really of like the barnyard animals, like they were there to be saved. That's why they have a lot of weird animals that you've never heard of, like the one that smells like popcorn. What is that one called?
Oh God, I know which one you're talking about.
It's like a weird mix of a raccoon and an aardvark.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the name of it right now, but
I can't remember what it's called either. And they got Alejandro there too.
Yes, it's the peacocks flying everywhere around the zoo for whatever reason, and are they tagged or are they?
They're tagged. They're definitely
they can bring
tagged.
them back if they escape because like obviously
they never really would escape. They actually did have their own little pen. Did you know where that was at?
No,
it was right by the meerkats. There was that empty pen there, and it's for the peacocks because that's where they made their nests. That's where they called home. So they would eventually make their way back there.
Okay.
But like there were occasions of them getting out, but for the most part they didn't leave because their home was already there, and that's where the food is too. So they just stayed there.
I know they fed the peacocks, which helped keep them around.
Yep.
Which, yeah, those guys were weird.
Those guys were awesome. They had
the white one too. They were so cool. I love the white one.
The white one is super cool looking. It's like the bad guy from Kung Fu Panda.
True. What's his name? Shen.
Shen.
Hi, Shen. I'll call him Shen next time we're back there.
Hi, Jen. Hi, Janice.
But I don't have anything else super crazy. Like behind the scenes experiences at the zoo. I could talk about zoo school, I guess, because we did get to go for zoo school. I remember that's when because it was in 3rd grade, and I remember that's when they had just gotten the rhinos, and they were trying to get them to mate. So they had to shut down that whole wing of the zoo so that they could put the rhinos together and let them mate.
Because they're shy.
Right. And that was a huge deal. Which is a huge deal for me because the animal I was supposed to study in zoo school is the meerkats, which is directly across from the rhinos. So that made that experience a little difficult.
What a fucking awesome pick for which one you have to study too. The meerkats.
They were I was originally not very happy with my choice, but I loved it.
I love meerkats.
They were so fun. They were so fun to observe.
The only other one I would have rather done.
True.
So I missed that. But I would have done like the bats or something inside the reptile house with the monkeys.
A lot of people like doing the reptile house. I don't like going to the reptile house. Not because of the animals that are in there, because it's for good reason. It's super muggy.
Yeah. I like it in there a lot. We'll talk about more. We'll do another episode about my experience in year 2. And then I also have a different story related to this zoo that I don't know when I'm going to talk about, but we'll talk about it eventually. It's a different kind of job, but it was there.
But I also remember during zoo school we got
I have 2. I should put that on there too. Just forgot about that.
The only other thing I remember from Well, I'll talk about. I know one thing. I know one of my zoo school stories relates to something that you're going to tell in the next episode. So I'll hold that for now. But the other one.
Up docs in docs.
But we got to go behind the scenes in the rhino exhibit. I got to do that twice actually. I think I got to do that in the summer camp, and in zoo school, and I think I got to do that during one of their holiday events too. That was super cool because like the rhinos are obviously huge, but like being up close with them in their back area,
yep,
is so fascinating.
Yep,
I really like that.
The baby was a really big deal when that was happening.
That was a huge deal. It was huge.
Because obviously it's a rhino, right? So they're already like super endangered.
Right.
And they're white rhinos too.
Are they white rhinos?
Yeah.
Damn. Because one of them, because there's still one of the original ones still there.
Yep.
One
of
them
male
died.
is. One of them died.
One of them died.
I didn't know that because
But
they sent the male away.
I think the male.
They sent the baby away, and then they sent the male away to do more breeding.
I think the female died, and they got a new female.
The female might have died.
One of them did die, though. I remember that. But
the only one that I really remember dying was the snow leopard. That's the only one that I ever remember.
Yeah, I remember the snow leopard dying. I remember the tiger cubs being born. I remember the story with the meerkats because I went to the zoo one day and realized there was a significantly less of them than there usually were. So I asked one of the zookeepers, like, hey, why are there less
They're black rhinos, not white rhinos.
I said, hey, why are there less meerkats?
2015 is when the male rhino died. So that was before we even did this.
For the program, yeah.
Yeah. So the baby was born after that to the new male rhino.
Well, I asked, and he's like, well, we can't get any new meerkats until all the old ones die. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, because they
fight.
Yep, exactly. They're very territorial.
Speaking of fights, this is not related to any work things, but remember that...
Oh, the rhino had a seizure disorder. That's rough. So it was euthanized. It didn't die. They had to put it down because of this rare illness, which is incredibly sad.
Do you remember when the zoo had yaks?
Yes, in the barn area.
Yeah.
What did they put there instead of... They might have just put, like, cows.
They didn't put anything there, I don't think.
Well, there's something there now, but I don't know what it is.
Because this isn't related to zoo school or the work thing or anything, but
those... They were there when you did zoo school, though, weren't they?
So one of them was there. They used to have two, but they would fight all the time. And they were the star attraction for that reason. Because they would always be getting into, like, fights with each other. Yeah. So eventually, because of injury concerns, and because the pen was definitely not going to be able to withstand them if they decided to charge at the thing, one of them got removed and shipped somewhere else, leaving the other guy there. And that guy eventually died, and they didn't get any new yaks after that.
Yep.
But that was a long time ago. I loved the yak fights, as did most people. So I was really sad when one of them left. But I understand why they had to do it. But that was fun. So that's really all else I got to say. I mean, again, it was fun. Would I do it again?
Yes.
If I get paid, yes, I would do it again. Because it was pretty cool. Some cool people. Super chill. Getting to work with the animals. Wasn't too stressful. So I definitely think I would like to do it again. Will I, though?
The stressful part for me was I have an irrational fear of horses. So the ponies freak me out a little bit.
What? You afraid they're going to kick you or something?
A little bit. I did the horsemanship merit badge at D-Bar A a long time ago. That instilled the fear of horses in me.
That's true. Will I ever do this again? Probably not. But if I had the opportunity, maybe I'd take it.
Yeah, why not?
So.
In fact, I haven't been to that zoo in a long time, actually. Last time I went there was when we did the zoo vlog.
Really? It's been that long?
It's been
I
that
think
long.
I've been there once since that happened.
That was the last time I've been. You, me, and Eli doing the zoo vlog. That's an ancient reference.
Ancient video, for sure. But we're going to do a part 2 to this, because Noah's going to talk about his second year working there.
That'll be Noah-focused.
I've got one more episode. I got one more story to tell in that episode that relates to Zoo School.
I've got two more. I've got the second year to talk about. Then I've got two different stories other than that to talk about later on in a different episode.
So you'll see that maybe next, or maybe not. We'll see. Who knows? But until next time, guys. See you guys later.
Goodbye, companies.
Goodbye.